Hey everybody, good morning and welcome to Chippa in the third person, my video log style thingy. This is the Chippa Brothers Tangent, Talkbuster podcast, shooting the shit with Chippa and creating geeks. To let you know, there's a new episode of the Chippa Brothers Tangent coming out tonight at 8 p.m. for everybody. If you're already a patron, you could already be listening to it. This was Bob and I discussing Godzilla. The night before it came out, I was seeing it the next day. At the time of this recording, and Bob had already seen it. We just kind of geek out about Godzilla. So if you enjoyed Bob's review of Godzilla, and you enjoyed Godzilla in general, this is definitely an episode of the Tangent to catch. Just $1 a month, and you could be listening to episodes like this a few days early, like the rest of my patrons, amongst all the other perks. Still don't have an update to tell you guys on the announcement for that thing going on with the Talkbuster podcast, but hopefully today, fingers crossed, so tomorrow morning I'll have something to say. So, do you guys remember that Danny Boyle has a movie coming out? Danny Boyle, the director of 28 Days Later and Trainspotting, Sunshine, among other things, has a movie called Yesterday coming out. I hear from good sources, the Rotten Tomatoes score overall isn't stellar, but from good sources, I hear that it's quite good, and it's a lot better than the movie they've been selling it to be. But for those of you that don't know, Yesterday is, I think it's a clever concept. It might be a better concept for an episode of like The Twilight Zone, or a show like that, than a whole movie. Let's see where they go with it, but sources say that it's pretty damn good. But the idea behind Yesterday is through some, movie science or mysterious sort of way, an event happens where the world all of a sudden forgets the Beatles. Not that, the Beatles happened, but they forget them. Literally, the Beatles don't exist. And this nowadays, failing songwriter is the only one that remembers them. So he starts playing Beatles songs for people, and they believe he's the most amazing artist that's ever existed. He gets a rise to fame from this. So it's a really, really cool concept. There's a shot in the trailer that shows someone that may be Paul McCartney, like, challenging them, which is kind of interesting. I think it'd be clever if, also, like, Ringo Starr shows up somewhere in this. I hope he does. Maybe it's already been said that he does. But, my father was an incredibly intense Beatles fan. And my father-in-law is an incredibly intense John Lennon fan. Because everything Beatles related directly involving John Lennon, he's absolutely jazzed about, but is not a big fan of Paul McCartney. That whole feud and everything else was going on there. But I'm really excited to see this movie. For the longest time we weren't able to get, a ton of Beatles music all in one place because, Michael Jackson had owned the rights to the songs and then he sold them. It's just a very, very odd mix of things. It'll be interesting to see how it turns out. I'm really excited to see it. Next thing on my list is the early reactions to Spider-Man Far From Home have been coming out, and they're stellar, which is good. Those of you that know my brother real well know that he isn't the most jazzed person in the world about Spider-Man Homecoming. That comes with a lot of things, to him and I, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, at least the first two. He likes the third one a little bit more than me. I still enjoy the third movie. I saw it being filmed. I have kind of a bias there. We stumbled upon it in New York. We saw Tobey Maguire. It was kind of cool. But my problem with the third movie is there's an obvious cynicism from Raimi making it where he didn't want to make the film. That shines through in the production. Doesn't like Venom. That shines through in the production. And so he kind of does like a hard take to make it, silly and kind of meta and make fun of it. But the first two Sam Raimi Spider-Mans are fucking incredible. Especially the second one. And So there's this other thing tangentially going on where Marvel's been counting down from number 4, which made people think, ooh, maybe there's a 4th Spider-Man movie being announced, or maybe they're announcing what Raimi would have done as the 4th Spider-Man movie as a comic. That would be really freaking cool. I'm not sure if maybe it's just a bigger announcement about Far From Home, or maybe announcement of another Spider-Man comic. But either way, that drops today, probably soon after you guys see this. So there's that as well. But Spider-Man Homecoming, I really like it. But I also feel it's kind of a mess. The stuff involving Tony Stark, everything trying to be shoehorned into it to make it fit with the MCU better, I felt just seemed kind of not necessary, maybe. But everything Peter Parker and directly Spider-Man story related I loved about the movie. And I think the Vulture is one of the best villains the MCU has put to screen, besides maybe Thanos, right? And Ego. I actually really like Ego, but there's some people that just write that movie clean off, which kind of bothers me. But anyway, so Far From Home I'm excited about, but at the same time, you know, I love Tom Holland as Spider-Man. But I've said this before, Into the Spider-Verse is a more interesting Spider-Man movie. Because Tom Holland is playing Peter Parker. We've seen Peter Parker stories put to screen before. We've seen Peter Parker stories, I'm not going to say done better, but done more comic-related in the 90s television, a cartoon show. And there's current cartoon shows, I guess, that are doing it really well. So, do I need more Peter Parker Spider-Man? And that's kind of the toss-up I'm having here, is, you know, Spider-Man is more fun. I've now seen the full comic book, full different look Spider-Man movie and Into the Spider-Verse that I actually think tops the MCU in terms, or the main MCU films, because it looks more like a comic book. It feels more like a comic book. And it feels more like something else entirely, which is, I think, something cool we could be going for. So, I've been thinking about Far From Home and thinking about what they could do to make it more interesting, other than the fact that I want more Spider-Man in the MCU stuff. I like Tom Holland as Peter Parker, but I would really love, especially since if the true thing they're leaning in is that Mysterio is from another universe, which I still can't decide if that's going to be a ruse. They've established, you know, with the things in Endgame that there are other timelines and other realities going on. But is Mysterio being 100% real with that, or is it just a falsification? Now, if they are, that introduces the fact that if we're going to make Into the Spider-Verse canon, which it seemed to try to do with, you know, the Peter Parker that was kind of old and beat up that shows up in Spider-Verse, I believe they were leaning was supposed to be the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. So, is then that a different universe in and of itself from this, which means Miles is from a different universe. So could Miles show up to help out at the end of this movie? Now, if Miles Morales shows up in the MCU, that leaves me with the 50-50. Do I want them to hire a new actor to play Miles? Do I want the person that did the voice to do like a mocap, you know, version to make it look like Miles? Or do I want it to just be flat out that in Miles' universe, everything looks the way it did in Spider-Verse, so he shows up and he's, you know, a drawn 3D, 2D, cel-shaded character? That would be really freaking cool. So, if they're going to meld them, or, you know, or not, I think this is a good opportunity to kind of really go for that home run, go for that grand slam with Spider-Man. So, maybe that's something they're going to do. I'm really excited to see Far From Home in any case, but I'd be even more excited if it tied it into the Spider-Verse somehow. So, that's what I got for today. This has been the Chippa. I'll see you guys on the other side. Bye.